Hello, friends. This is Debojyoti, and today we have a very special guest with us. She is Mickey O'Hagan. You saw her in movies like Prince of Broadway, Starlet, Tangerines, and she had a role in the recently Oscar-winning film Anora, which is one of the most talked about movies in the recent past. So it's a pleasure having you, Mickey. How are you?
I'm doing so well, thank you. And if you saw me in Prince of Broadway, congratulations, because I was like a blip and a shadow. But I'm so glad I worked on it because it put me into the Sean Baker universe.
Absolutely, yes. And I think we will obviously get to that. And that has been a long partnership, right? And you had a pretty substantial role in Tangerines and movies like that. Starlet, you had a small role in Anora as well. So you'll obviously talk about everything. And Mickey, what we do in these interviews is what I try to do. We all see the artist on screen, right? We all see them perform, but what I try to do is know the person behind the artist and what made the person they are. So I like to start on your childhood. So Mickey, where did you grew up in USA?
I grew up in New York and New York City, Queens. And I have to say, my childhood was pretty good because I had parents that were incredibly supportive of the arts, loved the arts themselves. I mean, they were readers, moviegoers, writers. So they love anything having to do with that. So when I told them that I wanted to be an actress, it wasn't like that moment of shock, like, wait, we thought you were going to be a scientist. Nobody thought I was going to be a scientist. Actor made much more sense. But it's funny because my sister and I, we often say like they didn't give us enough to rebel against because they were so supportive. We joke like we probably would have been more successful if we felt like we really had to like beat the system or something. But we had parents who were like, "Yeah, you're interested in it, go for it."
So obviously, Mickey, you mentioned you were born in the Queensboro region, and obviously it's like the center of everything, right? So growing up, being on New York, like the proper New York City, so there are a lot of options, right? Like if you are from a small town or if you are from a relatively less centralized region, the opportunities are more limited. But in New York, you obviously grew up in the thick of things, if I can call it that. So like growing up, were you always interested in art, or were you always interested in the art of cinema? Because you are watching the global cinema, right? Obviously the Hollywood, the mainstream Hollywood. Maybe at that time the independent scene was thriving as well, at least on New York scene. So what was like growing up in New York, and what kind of movies you are watching?
It was actually really cool because I'll just go back to my folks for a second because my dad was born in Ireland and he was aware that in the 70s.
I was going to say that you actually look Irish.
Oh, do I? Yeah. I'm so pale. But yeah, and I kind of have that sense of humor, I think, as well. But in the 70s, apparently, there was this thing where the Catholic Church would put out a list of banned movies. So my father in the 70s would always make sure to go see those movies, whether it be Monty Python or something by like, I think The Devils was on that list. So that's what I grew up with, a dad who was like, oh, if you want to see this movie, go ahead. So, and you're right, not those movies actually that early on, but within reason. I'll just say it that much. So what was interesting about being in New York is you did have access. You know, even though I lived in Queens, you could get into Manhattan. You could go to like the smaller movie theaters. And you know, growing up in the 80s, VHS explosion happened. So right away, you know, the second the video store was open, when it still cost like a membership fee to go get a video, maybe like $100 a year, and then you had to pay for the actual videos themselves, which is so weird to think about now. I mean, we'd be there all the time. So yeah, growing up in New York City was a blessing in terms of all that access to every type of movie, from popcorn films to Peter Greenaway films.
Awesome, awesome. And you mentioned your father. So your father, I'm assuming, is a movie buff, and he wasn't exactly the most religious person as you described, and he was obviously watching all these movies. So was it your parents, especially your father, that had that impact and probably installed that love for movies in you, or was it something that happened on you organically?
I think it was both my parents because for my dad, it was always whatever sort of counterculture stuff he could find that I would watch occasionally with him. And for my mom, it was more the social aspect of going to the movies wasn't just going to the movies. You'd go shopping, you'd see a film, you'd go for dinner or lunch after. So it was all just such positive vibes where so many friends, like when I was in school, I would tell them like, "Oh, I saw this film." And they're like, "You're allowed to watch that?" And it kind of didn't even occur to me back then, like I shouldn't necessarily be seeing Predator in the movie theater, but I'm so glad I did. Like, that's the coolest thing ever that I did. So yeah, I just feel like it was so nice to not feel like something was bad because it was a little different. The only film I remember I wasn't allowed to watch was Videodrome, and when I was older, okay, I get it. I get why I wasn't allowed to watch that.
Yeah, it's kind of disturbing. Yeah.
Yeah, a little. Yeah. So I definitely credit that. And then just myself, like it clicked with me in a way that a lot of things didn't. Like I didn't care. I mean, I don't recommend this for kids to be so into movies and books because I didn't want to learn how to ride a bike. I didn't care about swimming. I definitely didn't care about driving. I still don't care about driving. I just wanted like that. I just wanted to be around creative people and see creative things. And again, maybe I was a little too ensconced in it because there's a lot of quote unquote normal things that maybe I wasn't doing as a kid. But so what? I could tell you all about De Palma films when I was 12.
Absolutely, yes. So as a kid, maybe you were sneaking into the R-rated movies and everything.
Oh, you
So
didn't even
yeah, so
see New York. They
yeah,
didn't
so
in the 80s. Yeah. I mean, maybe once in a blue moon. I remember, yeah, they just didn't care.
which is a good thing, right? You got to watch all those movies very early. So like, what kind of movies you're watching growing up? You mentioned Predator and everything. So what kind of movies? I'm just really curious. Like, what was the movie scene like? Because in India, I was obviously born in mid '90s, but in '80s the movie scene was very different, and honestly, it wasn't very good. So I'm really curious, like, what kind of movies you guys were watching.
Thank goodness for VHS, right? When you were able to start getting like all sorts of movies. But we honestly everything. Like we were always a big horror family. Like growing up, New Year's Eve would be a horror movie always, and one of our favorites was Ghost Story, based on the book by Peter Straub. And again, if you watch it, you're like, maybe a 10-year-old shouldn't have been watching this, but whatever, it's fine. I'm fine. So let's see. Horror was big. Disney was huge. I'm still a huge Disney person. I know that seems like a bit of a jump, but when you think about how dark
You
some
don't give the vibe of a Disney person.
right? So, and there were also, let's see, Monty Python was big in our family for sure, which led to other sketch comedy that I really liked, like Reno 911 and The Kids in the Hall. So there was definitely more of a tendency towards maybe like darker humor and darker stuff. And yeah, from Monty Python, I discovered Terry Gilliam. So Brazil was huge for me. I mean, I think any kid who maybe isn't big on authority, basically every kid is going to click with Brazil if they can get through the
Yeah.
runtime. Which for me, it's no problem. Most movies, I'm like, hey, that could have been longer. But yeah, Brazil was huge in our house. And I remember my parents watching it, and they loved it. And I thought, well, they love it. Maybe it's not that cool. But then I watched it on my own. I was like, oh, this is
Okay, yeah. If your parents love it, then the counterculture thing and the rebellion thing doesn't click, right?
totally, yeah. Like, oh, I remember them telling me RoboCop was good, and I thought, nah, if you guys like it, and yeah, RoboCop's the best. So they have good taste. Now that I'm an adult, I can admit they had very good taste.
Awesome, awesome, Mickey. And you obviously was watching all these movies, and as you mentioned, you did not have all the sort of hobbies and the passions that other kids of your time and your age would do. So, like Mickey, you mentioned that your like love for movies came through your parents, and you were watching all these movies. So, like, see, like when it clicked that I can turn this love of me, that this passion of me, this movie watching into a profession. Like, did you think of it as a child? Because as a child, you're probably not thinking very constructively. But like, when did it click that I can pursue a career in that? Did you do like school plays and stuff? Like, when did it click?
I did. I did do school plays. I would say it clicked around junior high because you're right. Like before that, all you're thinking about is how you don't want to have a job and you don't want to work. I was
Yeah.
dead set on becoming an ice skater. Too bad Queens didn't really have an ice skating rink that was anywhere near us. So that was out the window. Yes, junior high was when I really discovered I loved English class and I loved reading plays. I read so much more now then than I do now. It's a shame. Like I'm a shadow of my former self because in junior high I discovered Shakespeare and loved it. You could put a gun to my head right now and I won't sit there and read Shakespeare. But seventh and eighth grade me was all about it. And that's when I started thinking, like, oh, people do this and I could do this. And I was never afraid of public speaking. I never had a problem with any of that kind of stuff. So it was sort of a natural progression, especially liking being in plays. For a lot of the kids, it was sort of like a chore if you had to participate. And for me, it was like the favorite part of the day. Not a theater nerd, though. I will never be a theater nerd. I hate musicals. So, but regular plays are fine.
Awesome. And Mickey, you mentioned that you never had this interest in sports and the swimmings and stuff like that. The other kids have. Like, so you found your groove in a way. I can, if I can say it this, that you found your way to express in theater, right? That growing up, this is the thing that you wanted to do. Now, this is the thing. Like, obviously USA is the biggest movie market, and like what was your journey in that? Like you started doing plays, then like when you're doing plays in school, it's not profession, right? You're doing it for passion, sometimes playfully, sometimes maybe you want to express yourself. Like how did the journey towards professionalism happen?
And to be fair, like I don't want to paint myself as this like quirky, like nonconformist kid. I'm pretty basic. Like you've heard of every band I like. You've probably heard of every movie. I'm actually so basic, which I'm not afraid
So
to.
you are weird but not that weird.
That weird, exactly. Like I wish honestly that I was more badass when I was younger and just going against the grain. But no, I had a very typical probably approach to it. The one thing I didn't want to do was go to college, and I was just like, no, the second I'm out of high school, I'm done. And that was one situation where my parents put their foot down. They said, you can do whatever you want, but you're going to college. So the way I made it work for myself in a very film nerd way was that one of my favorite films at that time was David Lynch's Wild at Heart. And in the movie, Laura Dern names her son Pace for some reason. And like that week, I got a brochure from the
Wild
university.
at Heart was the one that the Nicolas Cage one, right?
Yeah, that one,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, I have watched it. Yeah.
It's yeah. So had a big effect on me. And that week I got a brochure, like, when you're like 17, you're getting all the college brochures in the mail. And I got one for Pace University. And I said, well, I'm going to Pace. It was good enough for Laura Dern and Wild at Heart. It makes no sense. I know. And this is where I thought it's a good sign. I'll just go there. So I'm happy I went there, but I definitely would recommend to other acting students, if you're watching this right now, just get out there while you're in school. Like you will never have that level of enthusiasm, drive, energy the way you do from like 18 to 24. Like just go do it now. Don't wait. Cause I was like, oh, I have to do well. I'm on scholarship and I can't go to audition. I have to study. Stupid, right? Like nobody cares. Nobody cares how I graduated magna cum, whatever. Like nobody cares. I should have. So I wish I hadn't not wasted. I shouldn't say wasted, but I wish I had done more in those 4 years in the real world of acting and gotten out there and not kind of been thrown out with a useless degree. Sorry, colleges and universities, but yeah, it felt a little useless.
So you mentioned that you started doing theater. Now all the actors and actresses I have talked to, they tell about the distinctive artistic expressional difference between a theater and a cinema. So did you always wanted to do cinema, or was it something that okay, I'm doing theater and this is cinema. These are two different things for me, and I can maybe balance out both. So what was your approach? Were you always like fixated on cinema, or was it like you also prefer doing theater as well?
For sure. I definitely always gravitated towards film and TV. I did, though, early on do some theater just because I felt like I'm a New York actor and they expect you to do theater. If you're a New York actor, that's what you do. And I learned very quickly that it just wasn't for me. And God bless all the people that it is for. It was just not for me. Like, yeah, I like acting for camera so much better than I did in theater. I didn't like it's funny because film and TV has a million technicalities, if anything, maybe even more in terms of like camera and all
Yeah.
of that. But I could just never quite feel in the moment in theater. It always just felt for me like a disconnect. Whereas for some reason, film and TV, I don't have that feeling. The second they call action, I'm there.
You got me curious, Mickey, because obviously you mentioned your love for cinema, and cinema was the form that you expressed yourself the best. But like, what was the thing that you hated about theater? Was it performing in front of a live audience? Was it there? So I just want to know your like why didn't the theater click with you?
I wish I knew. I think it's just an internal thing that it just never, it felt not quite as insufferable as when I had to be bartending or waitressing, but it had a similar feel of like a slog. And I don't really, even when I got cast and stuff, I would just be grouchy and just not want to go. And I would do my best, but I just couldn't wait to get out of there. It was just whereas what I ultimately found was great was something like voiceovers, where the second I was in the booth, I felt great. I felt so confident. And it wasn't that thing where, oh, theater scares me, so I don't want to do it. No, I was just not for me. I mean, I just didn't ever feel that same connection. Maybe I was just in bad place. I'll blame them. I don't know. No, they were fine. It was me. It's 100% me. I'm just wired to be like that. If I don't want to be there, yes, I can act like I want to be, but if it's just not feeling right, and it just never felt right.
Yeah, absolutely, totally understandable. It's a thing that didn't click with you. That's totally understandable. So let's talk about your movies. So you graduate, and then like, what is the career pathway? And if any young people are watching, it can be they can use it as a reference. It will. So you are from New York. You did your graduation, and obviously you are from a non-film background, right? You have no godfather or anything. You're on your own.
If
So
only.
what is the career pathway for someone like you to make it big?
Oh, if somebody knows, feel free to message me. But I will say, like anything else, it's the tenacity because yeah, you really don't know. I mean, you know what you have to do. And back then, you would just buy, because, yeah, it wasn't like something where you could find auditions a ton online yet. There were some, but it was still the usual thing to do. So you would buy this newspaper called Backstage, and you would start auditioning, you would start going out, and you would be, going like really early, let's say like 2 hours early for an audition for some nobody. Like when you're first starting out, it's not like you're getting rejected by, Ari Aster. You're getting rejected by some pud who put an ad in a paper and made all the auditions for like all the women are supposed to be beautiful, like even though they're like normal people. So this is what you're dealing with early on, and you're up against hundreds of other people. I was lucky in that I was able to join SAG relatively early because of a project that I booked. But even that, when you're starting out, is sort of a catch-22 because now you can work on SAG things, you can work on the down low on non-SAG things. Not that I would ever do that, to build up your reel, but that's kind of how it went. You just went to every audition hoping that even if it didn't pay, you would at least get footage to put on your reel. And you just do
Yes,
it over and over and over.
so it's a grind. It's a grind.
It's a
So yes,
grind.
Nikki,
It's not magical at all. You think like, oh, I'm in New York, I'm going to be an actor. What saved me
yeah,
really was voiceovers. I started booking voiceovers. And so
yeah,
that was able to sustain me and keep me going. Because I think if I didn't have that outlet, I don't know if I would have continued.
understandable, Mickey. And Mickey, you mentioned you joined Screen Actors Guild very relatively early in your career. So like in India, the system is a little different. So like, what difference does it make? Like, if you are a part of the Actors Guild, like, what difference does it make? Is it like, is there anything regarding the payment or anything? Like, explain this because we do not have this structure in India. This
Oh, really?
Actors Guild. Yeah.
Yeah. It really, mostly it's there to protect the actors because the aforementioned PUD who would put an ad in Backstage was some nobody. You don't know who you're dealing with. So they could call you and say, hey, you got the part and we're going to be filming all night and all day and I'm not paying you anything. Oh, and it's in some God knows where warehouse in Brooklyn. You do it because you have nothing else going on, but it's not, there's nothing protecting you. There's nothing saying, hey, you can't work that many hours without getting a lunch break and things like that. So the Screen Actors Guild, basically what they do, yes, you're going to get paid a certain amount. You're going to get fed at a certain time. They can't make you do certain things if you don't want to do them, or if it's not in your contract. So it definitely adds a layer of professionalism. The problem is now you're up against people in the union where you're up against people that maybe have been working longer than you or more connected than you. So joining as early as I did was tricky because I didn't really have a lot on my resume yet, but I was SAG, but I didn't even have an agent. So that's kind of how it goes about, where you have to sort of now figure out the next way to navigate now that you're actually in the union. because you will be penalized if they find out if you do non-union work, if somebody rats you out.
Okay. Okay, so you mentioned that there is a lot of this scam type of things where they put ads about movie auditions and they do not treat the personnel very well. So like, what type of like roles at this stage of your career before your big break happened? Like, what sort of roles you are doing? Are you doing short films? Like, what kind of roles I'm looking at?
Definitely shorts, definitely smaller voiceover jobs where you might be just doing it for someone who's doing a demo. It's not something that's ever going to see the light of day. So you do things like that. You do friends films. I never did student films, nothing against it. I just never did, but that's another outlet. And it's a great way to connect with people. I will say the early days, for anyone watching this who's starting out, definitely take advantage of those connections. People always say it's who you know, like it's a bad thing, but really it gives you a bit of power. If it's who you know, cultivate those relationships. You know, if you hit it off with somebody and they're like cool as a friend, don't, I mean, it's easier now with social media for sure.
Yeah.
But I feel like the early days, like doing things like student films and shorts, it's a great way. You never know who's going to move on to the next thing. And it just helps a lot to have people in your circle that are doing the same thing as you. It definitely helps with morale and that sense of, how unfair it all is when you talk about that kind of stuff.
Absolutely, yes, Mickey. And Mickey, at this stage of your career, you're doing the voiceover works and you're doing the smaller films, the smaller roles. Now let's talk about let's get, like circle back to the point that you mentioned, like the Sean Baker universe, as you put it. Like, how did that happen? Because that was your first big break, right? That really put you in the map. So how did that happen?
So that goes back to Prince of Broadway. I was friends with his eventual co-writer, but at the time just his friend, a writer named Chris Bergosh, and he was just the funniest person in the world. And he's such a funny writer. I feel like whatever happens next with him, like you're going to hear about him in like 2 years. So mark my words. But because I know whatever he's working on now, it's going to be ridiculously good. So
Okay, I have a hunch that you may be part of what he is working now.
we shall see. I don't know. Hands of Godzilla. I never assume because I know how it is with filmmaking. You either fit it or you don't. Like I really don't expect or assume ever anything. But I know back then when Sean was making Prince of Broadway, so I was friends with Chris and he said, "Do you want to be in my friend's movie tonight? He needs extras." And I said, "No," because it was snowing and it was cold. And he's like, "Come on, I promised him, like, let's just go and it'll take like an hour." And nothing ever takes an hour in a film.
Yeah.
But we did it and it probably took about 4 hours. So through that friendship, then became kind of like professional friends with Sean. Like not like we'd go and like have a beer, but just, kind of we're in the same circles. So then he did an MTV show that I was able to audition for. And through that audition, I did a ton of improv work. So then flash forward to Starlet, he remembered I did that improv work and he said, "Hey, can you help me with some auditions? I need to audition these girls to play the lead. And I want somebody who's good at improv so I can see, how they are on their feet." So I did that. And then like, again, we're not like hanging out and like buddies and stuff, like super cool. But like he lived in LA, I lived here. But through that audition for Starlet, he remembered one of the characters that I improved and that became Dinah in Tangerine. So, right?
Okay.
I mean, like literally not wanting to go the night I was going to be an extra to Tangerine. It's pretty cool.
Awesome, awesome. That's such a cool story, Mickey. And Tangerine was your first sort of a big break, right? It really put you on the map. And for someone like me, like living in India, love watching global movies, that was the movie that made me familiar with you and your work. So,
I
let's talk about Tangerines because I even in my channel now a lot of it is in Bengali, so you'll not probably understand. I say it like it is one of the funniest and best crime comedy movies out there.
thank
Like
you. I agree.
people don't talk about this enough. Now, it's in Bengali, but you can see it in sometimes. I have suggested Tangerines many times on my channel. So let's talk about Tangerines. That was your big break.
Who knew? I mean, honestly, because I mean, you're going to be shooting it on an iPhone. Now the script was really funny, but I just reading it, I just didn't know how it was going to work. And as an actor, that's scary when you're reading it and you're thinking, I don't know how this is going to be. Like she's just dragging me around, and all these lines. Like how are we going to do these lines? How are we gonna land it? And what was brilliant about the iPhone is there was really no blocking. You just went for it. So, and the combination of Sean and Chris, like their creative vision and their senses of humor and also their empathy. I mean, that was so important. Just their approach to something that was very empathetic, but also very almost matter of fact, like not wanting to put some silver lining on anything. It was just sort of here's a day in the life. And I think that really came through. But shooting it was crazy. I always say it was like Tropic Thunder because there were no sets. We were in the real world the whole time, with the exception of donut time. And then the thing is, donut time wasn't even closed because the only way they gave it to us was if they kept the store open. So in between all that madness, people were coming in and buying donuts and coffee. Can you imagine? So it was nuts. I mean, the bus, we were on that was the real bus. Those weren't extras. That was nuts. I mean, I'm sitting there
So it was a bus with real people, not extras.
not extras. I don't think because we didn't want to have stop and like get anybody to like sign. So I don't think you can actually see anybody. It was really tight on us. But yeah, I was
Okay.
literally bleeding at one point because I tripped and fell. That fall in the movie, I don't know if you remember, but right before I get on the bus,
Yes, yes, yes.
that was 100% real. So I get on there and I'm
Was it
bleeding.
on the script or did you just fail and they just kept
Yeah,
it that?
keep going, keep going. Oh my gosh, yeah. That was the
Mm.
spirit of the film. Keep going, keep rolling, keep going. Like there were moments where we knew we were going to lose the light and we knew Sean was just like, we need this, and it would happen. It was just magic cuz he's amazing. I mean, how he can keep that level of intensity but completely respectful, completely just professional, but also he never lost like that kid making movies who loves movies. And oh my God, we only have 10 seconds of light left. We have to get this. And then we get it.
Awesome. And you already brought this up, and otherwise I was going to brought it up anyway. So one of the interesting things Tangerines did was how it sort of revolutionized in the filming aspect, right? It was filmed entirely on iPhone, I guess.
It
At least
was
a large part of it was filmed on iPhone.
everything.
What was it like? Because before that, you were in front of a movie camera, so the dimensions and everything. Now you are probably way more qualified than me to talk about this, but things change, like the dimensions, how you give expressions. If you are in front of a iPhone, that dimension changes because iPhone and a movie camera is totally different size, right? So tell me about that, like using iPhone to shoot, and how, like, what were the challenges, what were the advantages maybe of filming on iPhone?
I loved it. I wish we could always film on iPhones the way it went sometimes because this movie had such a frenetic energy. It had such just that go, go, go feel. And the
Yeah,
fact
the movie itself is like so madcap
that
and chaotic. Yeah,
from the minute that beat hits in the beginning, like it doesn't stop. And that's what was so great about filming with iPhones because there was no setup. We had a professional sound man, but there was no lighting. I don't even think we had like a bounce or anything. We had the street, right? So everything was just boom, you get to set, you're working. I mean, I've never been in a situation where you just get there and within 10 minutes you're on set. So the energy level, I think, really kept up because of that. As an actor, it was actually really freeing because you had to worry less about, to your point, the dimensions and where you were and how big or how not big you should go. Because, Sean and his DP with their Steadicams, that was the only other apparatus they had. They had Steadicam that attached to their wrist for their iPhone, but that was it. So as an actor, you just went for it. The funny thing was, it probably could be equated to being like in a play, except you wouldn't have to worry about your voice. You could just worry about being in that moment because all the technical things that you normally worry about just weren't a thing.
understood. Make it great insights. And so, like, it is like, so you guys are out there, and I think the madcap energy that was on the film was probably on the set as well. And Mickey, there is a torrential rain going on in my part of the world. So if
Oh,
you hear any background noise, it's on nature. Okay. So yeah, so the madcap energy that we saw on film was present on the filming is well, right?
Right.
And obviously, so you guys were out there, you guys perform, whatever happens, happens, right?
And
So
a lot
yeah,
happened. Oh my gosh, so much happened.
so like Tangerines obviously got released and it got tremendous critical acclaim. Like, did things change for you after the release of Tangerines?
To a degree, not quite as much as you would think, because it's just how it is. I think whatever, anytime a movie is a hit, even in the indie world being a hit, there's certain, that not necessarily everybody catapults right off that and benefits, but I definitely benefited from it. I started getting better auditions, better awareness, which was great, because you do feel like you're sort of in this huge pool. So the fact that suddenly my auditions went from these people that you've never heard of to people that not only have you heard of, but you either watch the show or you're a fan of their work. So that was an incredible boost for sure.
Miki, I just want to ask you one thing because I always felt about movies like this. Did you think a movie like Tangerine, which is extremely entertaining, right? It will not bore you for even 1 second. Like with maybe a little bit of proper marketing push and maybe a studio backup, it had a potential to do extremely well at the box office. Did you ever like think? Because when I watched this movie, that was my thinking. Like, why isn't like isn't it more? Why isn't it more mainstream? Because it's not a quote unquote art film. There is a lot of entertainment value to it. It's not like you are watching a Tarkovsky. You are like 4 hours of boredom, right? You are entertained throughout. So I always thought that yeah, with maybe a little bit of no, you do not have to go like full mainstream, but even with a little bit of a backup, these movies like can do really well at the box office. Maybe these movies are not reaching to the wider set of audience. Did you have that feeling as well?
We were so grateful for the appeal for the success that it had, but I feel like for a bigger box office, it's tricky, because I think still there's a lot of people who would read a byline about a transgender hooker, tears up LA on New Year's Eve, and they would think, I have zero interest in that. I don't want to hear about transgender hookers, right? So I feel like it might be a tough sell for a bigger audience. The tricky thing is, though, that what Sean and Chris always wanted was that it was just a movie about heartbreak. It was just a movie about having a broken heart and being betrayed by someone, and who can't relate to that? But I feel like we may have a bit of a ways to go before two transgender leads open, a box office. But I mean, we're getting there, right? In terms of so much. I mean, this was 10 years ago, which blows my mind. So I feel like we've come like massive way since then. But at the time, gosh, I mean, just opening Sundance was incredible, and all the festivals that it played, it was so much fun just seeing people's reaction, seeing, Q&As that I would do, and there'd be someone who maybe you would think, again, would never go see a movie about transgender hookers, stand up, take the mic, and say, I just want to let you know this was like my favorite film of the year. It was so beautiful. And that's why you do it, right? To connect with people like that and to touch people. So those.
Absolutely, yes, ma'am. But Miki, like, let me counter you on this. Like we will obviously talk about Anora in details as well. But isn't Anora similar on similar lines as well? Like, if you hear one liner of Anora, it doesn't sound exactly very mainstream either, right? But it has become this cultural phenomenon. So let
I
me like, yeah,
I think everybody likes strippers, even if they don't want to admit it.
like
Um,
in that logic, everyone likes hookers as well, right? With your logic.
that should be the tagline for this. Everybody likes hookers and strippers. Yeah. Yeah, it's, you never know, right? You never know what's going to hit and what's going to be the thing. I do know the Anora trailer, I will say, when it dropped, it was just, here's Mikey Madison, this like wild, wild woman, just found, like, she's this beautiful little girl, but she's running her mouth. And I think that, yeah, just immediately was one of
Yes,
those
in a lot of ways,
movies.
I always see like Anora as the spiritual sequel to
I,
Tangerine
I
because
like,
it is also had that wild madcap energy, right? And you have to be like people like me who watch everything. It's probably easier for me to say this, but yeah, if you like watch like Tangerines and Anora have a lot of things in, especially that wild energy you talk about. But anyway, we'll talk about Anora maybe a little later. So as you mentioned that Tangerines, at least to an extent, changed things for you. And obviously the movie got a lot of love. Even it wasn't, maybe it was a gigantic, not a, like a $200 million box office hit or anything. It was extremely acclaimed critically. It did rounds of the film festivals and everything. And again, the Tangerines do have a cult following among me and my buddies that you can, like, yeah, we really like this movie. Some of my, me and some of my buddies who are equally like cinema loving as me.
Ah,
So
that makes
like, yeah, one thing we haven't discussed about you is your voiceover work. Now you have extensive voiceover work as well. Like, tell me about that. Like, how is it done? Like, how are these things? Are like animated films or the voiceover? Like, tell me about your voiceover career.
I wish I did animated films, but so often these days they get famous people. It's so hard. Like that's so like I don't want Garfield voiced by like a famous guy. No offense to whoever did it, but I want to
Didn't
forget
Bill Murray do it?
who was it?
Wasn't Bill Murray did Garfield?
I could see it or hear it rather. I'm not sure honestly. There've been a few, but I feel like for animation, like you don't want to be picturing somebody from like some sitcom. At least for me, I just don't. Okay, so I just don't. But anyway, I'm not being bitter. I just don't want to picture that person when I'm looking at like a purple Pegasaurus or
Yeah,
whatever.
when you are watching an animated movie, you probably do not want to imagine Bill Murray, I guess.
Yeah, I don't want to picture anybody. I want it to be like nameless face. It's just a purple Pegasus, and that's it. It's not the lady who's on that CBS show. That being said, so yeah, voiceover work though, it was funny, and this is a great story for anybody starting out to know that you never know what's going to wind up being something big. In this case, it wasn't anything big. It was just a lifesaver. It was one tiny little job I did for a Korean company. They were doing these they call them industrials. They're like work videos. So it was work videos about being appropriate in the workplace, something like that. So I was one of the Americans in it. And from that, they started doing these English tests where it was English language proficiency tests. And they needed someone for the entire project. And I got chosen as the English voice for that. And this project went on for years and years. Like, because apparently people kept cheating on the test, so they'd have to redo it, which was great. Anytime they had to redo the test, they'd call me. So it's just point being, you never know what's going to wind up being something to sustain you and keep you going. Because yes, you can waitress, you can bartend. It's really hard. It's really hard being out till 4 o'clock in the morning and then having to get up the next day and be productive. So it was really a lifesaver. And then, from there, I booked other voiceovers. And yeah, it's always been cool to have as a not even a backup. I truly enjoy it. If I could do voiceovers for the rest of my career, I'd be pretty happy with that. So it's very freeing in a way because you don't, especially as a woman, because you don't have to worry about all the stuff that you have to worry about. Because even as a character
Yeah,
actress, you know that you have to look a certain way, a certain weight, all that helps. I'm not saying it's be all end all, but with voiceovers, nobody cares, and that's great.
absolutely yes. And you, as you mentioned, so this voiceover work really made you financially independent, right? And obviously, as you mentioned, that you were not thinking about the glamour quotient, what, like, let's call it what it is, kind of a male gaze thing. And so after Tangerines, things really change. Like when I watched Tangerines, and I always think that,
Tangerine.
like,
No
yes,
S. No S. Just Tangerine.
yeah, and there is like one Netflix show is with the
No,
same.
it's
They
cute.
stole your name, by the way.
No, it's very cute.
So okay, I haven't watched that show, by the way. I shit on it for no reason. I haven't watched that show.
But
So yeah. So after Tangerines, so like what kind of offers did you receive? Like, and like how did the career pan out? After
unfortunately,
that, then
yeah, I got some great stuff. Like I got Homeland after that. I got another
yeah,
feature.
yeah. I forgot about Homeland
Those were
actually.
great. Unfortunately, though, because I did an iPhone movie and because I played a very skanky character, it made a lot of people think that I would just do anything. And I will not at all just do anything. And I got some offers that were super gross and just so not my vibe. And it's just annoying when people think like, oh, you worked on this iPhone movie, so you'll work on my iPhone movie, and here's the script, and all you're doing are like degrading things. Like, yeah, I might. Like, please, I'd rather waitress. So that there is that thing about being typecast, and I don't mind being typecast as a skanky hooker in good projects. I'll be a skanky hooker for the rest of my career too. It's a lot of fun. it's more fun for me than playing like a lawyer or a doctor for the most part. Um, being like a character that's a mess, it's so freeing. But I want to do on projects that I feel like have good writing and a good creative team behind it versus just anything just to say, oh, I'm working on this.
Absolutely, yes. And yes, I guess when you, because we have this stigmatization, right? It was shot on iPhone. It wasn't the most mainstream movie. And as you mentioned that, the transgender hooker thing, there was probably the people were probably not open enough. But anyway, let's talk about Anora. And as we all established by now that everyone loves strippers and hookers. So it's that one-two punch thing.
We
So
learned
like,
from this.
yes, you learn something new every day. So, how did Anora happen? And now it is like this. Now everyone is talking about Sean Baker and Anora, right? But you did Anora before Anora, and you were in that quote unquote Sean Baker universe since the Prince of Broadway. How did Anora happen?
So I actually, honestly, I don't really know the beginning stages because this was one of the few of the extended Sean Baker universe that I really was only on set for one day. Really didn't know. I knew that this was an idea that he'd had for a while about the whole premise, but I was surprised as anyone in terms of getting the call because I didn't really know what I was doing. I mean, this was a very rare thing where I didn't have to audition. His producer texted me and just said, going to be in New York because, they were filming all over the place. And yeah, it worked out. But I really didn't know quite what I was working into. I got the script maybe like, I think a day before in terms of it. And so it was very secretive. I mean, I don't think I've ever signed like so many NDAs. So I feel like everybody probably had a feeling like this was going to be it. I think, yeah, there was just a vibe. There was sort of an electric vibe. But the thing with Sean and his producer Samantha Kwan, like, if they call me like now and say we need you, I'm going to be there because again, you trust their process, you trust their vision. So I didn't have even an ounce of trepidation. The only trepidation you have as an actor is, I hope I had enough time to prepare. I hope I had enough time to really do the best I can do because you don't want to let them down. Like, you don't want to be the loose link in a Sean Baker film. That's terrible. So I'm glad it all worked out. It worked out okay for them.
Yeah, absolutely, it did work out okay. And you as you mentioned, you did not have that big of a role, and you were not aware of the whole thing, and there are a lot of NDAs and stuff like that. But did you in any way think that it is going to be this cultural phenomenon, this
I would say
best picture Oscar winning cultural phenomenon?
so amazing that it was, but knowing Sean, like Sean does not dream all day of necessarily the Academy Award. Sean is about, creative control and his vision. And movies like that don't always make it commercially, right? They might be revered on the indie scene. And so the fact that it turned, I was not surprised, but it was amazing because I just know other films of his, like Starlet, I thought was so unique and so different. And it did well on the indie scene, but I feel like it deserves more viewers, and it's like such a intense, unique film. So I loved seeing this happen for him. And I love the fact that when I did shoot my scene, I can tell you, walking into that room and all these angry Russians staring at me, and I haven't read the rest of the script. I only read my part, because I only got my part. It's not like they were just handing out the Anora script to just anybody. So I just knew my little scene, which was great though, because then I got to react. It helped my acting, I feel like, because I didn't know them. I didn't know what they dealt with. Sorry, my dog is like deciding to freak out over there. So yeah, it helped because I had no idea what was going on. And I just kept thinking, I just want to go to lunch. I just want to get rid of these people. I don't care what their dramas are. And when I saw the scene, how it finally was cut, I thought, yeah, perfect. That was the right approach. Because after I shot it, I remember, this is the thing when an actor, you're never really done if you don't, because I kept thinking like, oh, I should have done this and I should have reacted more. I just kept thinking I should have reacted more to all that because I didn't think I reacted that much. But then watching it back, I thought, no, why would she react? She doesn't care about any of them. She doesn't know who they are. She just wants to leave. She works in Vegas. she sees stuff like this all the time. This is nothing. So it's nice when your initial thought is the correct thought, in my opinion.
Absolutely, yes. And Anora, in a lot of ways, it's a stereotype breaking film, right? First of all, Anora is not the type of movie that you expect to win Oscar. Great that it did, but it is not the sort of the Oscar winning movie that we think about. And again, it's not the most mainstream of stories, yet it became such a box office success and such a commercial success as well. Like, even in India, people are talking about it.
Oh,
Hey, this
good.
Anora, some people love it, some people thought, some people hate it, some people thought the sexual scenes were too much,
They
some
know.
people thought yeah. So it's a so when you talk about Anora, and again, because I really like movies, and I am like inside the circles, you get a strong emotion from Anora. Either people absolutely love it, or they think it's the most overrated movie of all time. Okay, I personally really like the movie, and again, but what it did without any doubt, that it broke stereotypes, right? That is, it is not the type of movie that that wins Best Picture Oscar. Like, when Everything Everywhere All at Once won, people told the same thing, right? That Everything Everywhere All at Once is not the type of movie that wins Oscars.
Oh, right.
Anora is like 100 light years from away from that. So I just want to know one thing, Mickey. Like, what makes Sean Baker special as a director? Because he picks up this weird non-mainstream kind of, not just non-mainstream, but topics that often confront mainstream, right? And yet he has made this cultural phenomenon called Anora. So what makes him special as a director?
I think, and he never said this is me saying this, but I think he looks at movies, the movies he makes are not for everyone, unlike your mother. So, but he never said that. I think he tells the story he wants to tell, and that you either click in with it or you don't. And he leaves a lot up to your interpretation, because that was fascinating for me, like hearing all the different takes on the ending. And some of the takes were so terrible, but you just kind of have to smile and go, oh, is that what you thought? Because that's what they thought. Same thing with the Florida Project. Same thing with Tangerine. He doesn't spoon feed you. This is exactly what you're supposed to think right now. And you might be uncomfortable. You might one minute be loving the star, or the next minute you hate her. I mean, that was a great thing in Tangerine. Like, Cindy did some really terrible stuff, but you couldn't take your eyes off her. And Anora, I mean, she was not always the most sympathetic girl, but then at the
Yeah.
end, you're kind of crying along there with her, and you're like, damn, the hustler got hustled. And so I think that's what makes him special, that he tells the story he wants to tell, and you never feel like a focus group of people watching his movies putting in their own 2 cents. The ones that he's done on his own, the ones he's done with Chris Bergosh, like, you can tell this is what they wanted. And if you don't like it, it's not for you. And that's fine. He'd be the first probably to say that's fine. He just might not
Absolutely.
hang out with you. But I don't think he's not gonna get his feelings hurt, because he knows. I mean, sometimes people like that perfect happy ending. And
Yeah.
that's great for some films, but it's that's not always that story he wants to tell.
So Mickey, like, you have done a lot of voiceover work. You have done in front of camera. Now post Tangerine, you have that sort of that your big breakout. Now you're part of an Oscar-winning film, but you have done all of this as an actress. But since you mentioned from your childhood, you absolutely loved watching movies, right? And for people who love watching movies, at least once in their life, there is an idea crossed in their mind that I need to make a movie of my own, right? I need to direct a movie. So, like, have you thought about it? Please do not shoot yourself on the head. Like, did you ever had that? You absolutely had, like everyone does, people who love movies. So, like, is there any chance that we can see Mickey O'Hagan as the screenwriter or Mickey O'Hagan as the director?
Do you know there's this tattoo I want? And I made this stupid promise to myself that I will not get this tattoo until I have a writing credit on IMDb. And so at one point, yes, at one point I wrote I wrote quite a few spec scripts, actually. And I kind of got frustrated, and I thought, like, oh, I'm done here. But yeah, I'm such a control freak. The thought of directing a movie, like, I would be such a nightmare. I would have to fund it myself, first of all. and that's no fun. Never use your own money, right? But the thought of answering to
Yeah.
anyone, like, hey, I gave you 100 grand, you got to do exactly what, no, like I would get all Terry Gilliam and be like, no, I can't, take your money back. But a short, I feel like, sure. I think I do think I have at least one short in me because I have an idea that's been percolating. And it's funny, one of my filmmaker friends has been badgering me for years. He's like, make that movie already. I'll help you. And it's like, so I should, right? I'm never going to get that tattoo if I don't do it. So I should have
Absolutely, yes.
for it. Yeah. There's no excuses these days. There's no excuses. Like between phones and the what we have at our disposal. I mean, when you think about what kids in the 80s went through when they wanted to make movies, like those camcorders on your shoulder, like it's a whole new world. Like there's no excuses. So yeah, I mostly entertain myself by making reels of my dog, but maybe I should aspire a little higher. We'll see.
All the best for that, Mickey. And Mickey, what are the future projects that we will be seeing you in?
I'm not sure yet, but hopefully some good.
You know the ones you can actually share. Obviously,
Yeah,
I
exactly.
know there are legalities and everything.
So
The
super
ones you can
secret.
share.
The second you say something, then it's like you get the text, right? Oh, it all fell apart.
Yeah,
I know who I want to work with though. Do you know Danny McBride?
yeah.
He did Eastbound and
I
Down.
mean, I don't know him like personally. He's my friend or anything, but yeah.
Well, no, no, I love him. I love his work. I'm so jealous of
Awesome.
anyone who's gotten to work with him, even in small capacity. So that's kind of on my vision board. Like, yeah, his writing, his shows, they follow that same formula, if there is a formula, maybe a lack of formula, that when you watch his stuff, you don't get a sense that he ran this by a whole committee. You get the sense it came from his head, and he surrounded himself with creative players who get that vision. Like something like Eastbound and Down, of course, and Righteous Gemstones, but also the one that was lesser known, Vice Principals. Like when you watch that show, you almost can't believe it got made, and not because it's so edgy or filthy or anything like that. It's just more the story never really goes where you think it's going to go, and I love that kind of writing so much. It's he's probably as influenced by pop culture as the rest of us are, but he writes like a kid who like wasn't I really don't know anything about how, you should interview him next and find out how he grew up. But he writes almost like somebody who didn't have a ton of access to like regular pop culture because his stuff is poppy, but yet it's its own thing, if that makes sense. Like an exchange student who comes and tries to do an American trend but gets it kind of weirdly unique. Like that's how I look at his stuff. So that's going on my vision board.
That is a really interesting description. So, Mickey, like we are toward the end of the interview part of the interview as well. Like, let me ask you one thing because at the end of the day, people like you and me, we love movies, right? So, what are some of your favorite movies?
Oh gosh, I love this question actually. So I'd have to start with David Cronenberg's The Brood from the 70s. I think it's the perfect horror film. Oliver Reed is my cinematic boyfriend. So The Brood, I love. I love The Shining. It's one of the first horror
I
films.
love The Shining.
Right? I mean, talk about it, it holds up. It holds up. So just the uniqueness of it, the fact that I really like horror.
I just want to ask you one thing. Do you really think Stanley Kubrick faked the moon landing and he did it on Shining? The greatest conspiracy theory ever.
So here's what I think. I think we might not be asking the right questions about the moon. I think we went there, but did we really tell the truth about what we found there? That's what I want to know. So
Okay, this is a no. You cannot like create a new conspiracy theory here. This is the one we stick to one conspiracy theory. Anyway, Shining absolutely.
because then they came back and they were like, Stanley, you're not going to believe what's on the moon. We need you to fake like just desolation. And he was like, cool, give me money for my movie. And they said, okay. It's one of my favorite like harmless
Absolutely.
conspiracy theories. Yeah, it's one of my absolute favorites. But yeah, so I love so I love any kind of horror where you actually care, because sometimes that can be hard. Sometimes you just don't care. It's like fun to watch and you're a little scared, but at the end of the day, you don't care at all about the stars. And something like The Brood and The Shining, like you really care. Like, oh my God, Wendy, like Jesus, like she tears my heart out. Shelley Duvall in that role, and even The Brood, Cronenberg called it his divorce movie. And boy, do you see it. Like anyone who's had a bad breakup, they watch The Brood and they're like, yeah, I get it. It does.
Did you watch the recent Cronenberg film, The Shrouds?
Yes, I did. I saw that in the
It
theater.
was weird. It was weird.
That's kind of weird as his raison d'etre, right? If it's not weird,
Yeah,
it's Cronenberg. I love that he's still making a movie. I mean, I love his
yeah,
son.
yeah. We need to protect David Cronenberg at all costs.
Protect
No
him.
doubt about it.
His son is great too. I don't know if you've seen Infinity Pool or I'm blanking on the previous one, which I loved. I like both of them so much.
No, I haven't watched.
Oh,
Yeah.
I highly recommend because
Okay,
he
sure, sure.
he's a nepo baby. Like that is fine by me because he's carved his own path. Like, yeah, we love him. Protect him too. But so yeah, those are two of my faves. There's a film as a movie lover that I always recommend to movie lovers. It's called Apartment Zero with Colin Firth, and you must see it because his character is so great because he has these lines about he doesn't want to be friends with this one guy, and the guy's like, "Why won't you be friends with him?" He's like, "Because," in a very Colin Firth way, he's like, "Because I said I mentioned an actor and he didn't know who I was talking about." And he's like, "That's why you won't be friends with him because he didn't recognize that actor." And he's like, "Yes, I just knew I couldn't be friends with him." I mean, is that not how we kind of are sometimes as film nerds? Like if
Yeah.
somebody doesn't know, if you say, "Oh, have you ever seen
You
Tangerine?"
do not get, like we say, you do not get that film, right? Like
Yeah.
what, like when I talk about this, like when I talk about Tom Hanks, this one movie is called Joe versus the Volcano,
Oh
which
yeah.
nobody has ever watched. Like I love that movie, right? Like you
Yeah.
have to really get these movies. Like you need to connect. If you connect, if you're not connecting, you will absolutely hate it.
Yeah. Yeah, I do have a few of those, I'm sure, in my list. But I'll
So
name
what
it.
are the other movies
This
you like?
one that everybody loves, or everyone should love, I would think, is Up. I mean, I know it's weird going from Cronenberg to Pixar, but again, very dark themes, but Up. The one with the house and the balloons. Did you ever see that Pixar?
Yeah, it's actually surprisingly dark.
Yeah, it's so good though. I love that movie. So yeah, I don't know if I named five, but that's in Angel Heart. I love Angel Heart with Mickey Rourke. That's one of my faves.
So you're more into that David Cronenberg, David Lynch, that territory, and we obviously lost David Lynch a few months back. So
Yeah.
sad, rest in peace, David Lynch. But yeah,
What
like
a legacy though, huh? I mean, what
what
a
a
legacy.
legacy, man. We are still, like, he last made movie. I think Inland Empire was his last, and that came out in 2005. We are
Was
still talking about him, right?
and then he came back and did
This is
the
the power of your work.
revival. So yeah, we got the last season of Twin Peaks. So yeah, I mean, yeah, R.I.P. for sure. He's probably up there being
Absolutely.
a weirdo up there.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But and thank you, Miki, so much for doing this. It was an absolute pleasure talking to you. Like I pinged you out of the blue on Instagram. This is the weirdest approach anyone made for an interview to you. I'm pretty sure, like someone, like some random Indian dude just pinging, "Hey, I really liked you. You and Tangerine's let's do an interview."
To
It's
your
like really,
You were so polite. I mean, that's what people need to be. Just be polite. Like, you were so polite and you were so professional. Like honestly, like that's the approach ever. Like when I was talking about what did you get offered after Tangerine, people were sending like these DMs that were so just like, hey, you play a good slut or whatever. You want to be a slut in my movie?
yeah.
You want to be a slut in your
I mean,
movie?
at the end of the day, the thing is, you are watching an art, no matter what that character is played, right? If you are saying that you enjoy movies, and you're going out and you're then objectifying that actress, then you're not respecting that art, no matter how many movies that you watch, right?
Yeah.
This is why
Others.
unfortunate. Yeah, so like, it was super weird the way we connected, like some Indian like messaging, "Hey, I love you on Tangerine."
No,
But anyway, thank you so much, Mickey, and
thank
I
you.
hope that first of all you do not shoot yourself on the head, and you direct that short film of yours, and you absolutely get that IMDb credit and that tattoo,
That
and
tattoo.
yeah, absolutely, and all the best for all the future work that you do. Like one of your like long time collaborators is now a global talking point, right?
Amazing.
So you
So
don't know when or what things gonna happen. So all the best for all the things that you do. Thank you so much. You have been super kind.
Oh, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, my friend. You take care. All the best. And I'll see you at the movies.
Absolutely.